Carson Wentz steals the show as the Vikings rout the Bengals. Full recap from Minneapolis, plus a dynamite weekend on the high school gridiron, and the Bison resume their season this week. Hot Mike starts now.
Hot Mike with Dom Izzo.
Really? Really, Dom?
No. I like what Dom's doing.
Okay.
Dom Izzo.
Jeez, come on, Dom. What do you think I am, a magician?
Yeah, I'm fired up, Dom. What else could I say?
Absolutely. I was great to get on the field, and then Dom came up to me, and I'm trying to walk away from me. I just wanted to enjoy myself out there.
Hot Mike.
Great job.
There's got to be some kind of intelligent question about something.
Coach Dom Izzo, WDAY in Fargo, North Dakota.
Can you give me a layup or something?
Hot Mike. Presented by Northwestern Mutual.
That program is second to none.
On the networks of WDAY.
You know, if it's not about sports, I find it very hard to concentrate.
Here's Dom Izzo.
Good Monday morning. Welcome to the We Told You It Happened edition of Hot Mike on WDAY Extra. KSFL TV, good morning, everybody in Sioux Falls. KNBN in Rapid City. And Inforum.com. Happy Overreaction Monday. 22nd of September is ready to rock and roll on a beautiful start to the day. Finally, the clouds out of here. It's going to be 70 and sunny all week. It's like San Diego has arrived here in late September in Fargo. Welcome to the show, everybody. I am Dom Izzo, host of said show. Hope you had a dynamite weekend. Ready to rock and roll with a new week, our final full week of September, as it were. And no shortage of things to discuss, including the resurrection of one Carson Wentz that happened yesterday at U.S. Bank Stadium. That was donezo at halftime. That was the ultimate Viking game, because the next couple are tremendous for Viking fans, because the next couple are going to start at 8:30 in the morning. So you're going to have your whole day to do whatever you want after that. But yesterday, with the weather that turned out the way it was, you could watch the first half and then basically, like I did, do whatever you wanted after that. Now, what I did was not necessarily pleasant, which we'll get to in a bit, but after 1:30 yesterday, it was a dream. Literally cannot explain what happened, which we'll show you here in just a minute. Lots to recap from the weekend. I mentioned it was a dynamite high school football Friday, which we'll get to in a bit to unpack what we saw there. Some college games. Again, it wasn't highlight, at least for us locally. Dragons had a disappointing game, falling to Wayne State. The Cobbers lost to St. Olaf in the Troll Bowl. UND did what they were expected to do against Valpo. South Dakota did what they were supposed to do against Drake. There wasn't anything, I would say, earth-shattering locally there. Nationally wise, FCS, there were a couple of games, which we're going to get to coming up later on in our program. And we have finally reached the last week of the baseball season. The Twins have long been done for a while, but they ended their home schedule with a nice deal. And the playoff races, if you're so inclined to cheer for a team that is in it, well, the last week of the season is going to be dynamite to determine who's going to be in the postseason, which we'll show you in a minute. But let's start with what we saw yesterday at U.S. Bank Stadium, the backup bowl with Jake Browning quarterbacking the Cincinnati Bengals, Carson Wentz making his debut for the Minnesota Vikings, and the Bison fans that trekked down, and there were more than a handful, got their money's worth yesterday because it was a dynamite showing, not just by the former Bismarck Century standout, but his defense, which was fantastic. Vikes took the ball. They go right down the field. Wentz hits Josh Oliver for a touchdown pass. Vikes up 7-rip. Then Minnesota defense comes to play after that. Browning throws this pass intercepted by Isaiah Rodgers. Get to know the name. Down the sideline, he is gone for a pick six, 87 yards. It's 14-0 Purple with 6 minutes to go in the first quarter. Now, it's 17-3. Disastrous end of the half. Here, ball forced loose, and guess who's on it again? Rodgers scoops, and he will score a second defensive touchdown. It's 24-3. Minnesota. Rodgers did everything. Forced it loose, scoops, scores. Boat race is on. Now, next Bengals possession. Browning scrambles here, able to hit Jamar Chase. And again, he's stripped of the ball. And guess who did it again? Rodgers strips him. And the Vikings get the football back. Just a disastrous end of the half for Cincinnati. Jordan Mason will score. Remember, the Vikings had only scored touchdowns in the fourth quarter. They took care of that yesterday. It's 31-3, and then another fumble forced, and the Vikings are on it again. This all happened in the final 3 minutes of the first half. Will Reichert comes in. Why not? From 62 yards out, it's good. 34-3 Minnesota at the half. The onslaught continued in the second half. Mason scores his second of the game. It's 41-3 Vikings. You don't see this kind of bludgeoning happening in the NFL. Browning again intercepted. The Vikings turned it over. Carson Wentz with his second touchdown pass of the game. That to TJ Hawkinson. Max Brosmer even got in the game. The Vikings roll 48-10. The final. Wentz was efficient. 14 of 20 for $173 and 2 touchdowns. Mason with a big day. Rodgers, obviously, the story of what he did. But for us locally, all focused on what Carson Wentz did in his Vikings debut.
Definitely a lot of emotions I had to channel, running out there. It's been a while since getting a chance to do this, but then obviously being in the purple and gold means a little extra something to me personally. So, I definitely had a lot of emotions, but was able to channel them to the best of my ability, go out there and have a lot of fun with those guys. And that's what it was. It was a ton of fun. Also a ton of fun watching the defense play like that. Always helps. I think it was 5 turnovers or whatever. So that definitely made it a little easier for the whole squad. But it was all I can say is I had a blast out there.
Carson, how important was it for you to set the tone early on that first drive and kind of do what you did?
Yeah, I think that was big for me personally, but big for this team. I think that's something that we've been maybe lacking a little bit. So it's something we've talked about is starting fast, and finding our identity in a game quickly. And I thought the guys, really the O-line kind of set that tone right away, both with the run game. We were getting – JP wasn't getting hit till he was 10 yards downfield, it felt like early on. And so just with that, but then protecting me early in that drive, it was fun to go out there and just go right down the field like that and set the tone early and then kind of let our defense dig in.
Carson, it looked like you were comfortable out there all game. Did you feel a comfort level even though you haven't been here terribly long?
Yeah, I did. It felt like football again, which was fun. Once that kickoff happened, it just felt like another game going out there. And so, like I said, I was able to channel all those emotions, just go play. Did I play a perfect game? By no means. There's definitely plays I want back. Took a couple sacks. I can't be doing that, So there's still a lot to learn. But anytime you come away with a win like that, it's hard to win in this league. So it's fun to get them when you can.
Carson, Caleb said you reminded him of a point guard, the way you kind of were distributing the ball. Did it feel like that? You kind of got in a rhythm as the game went on with your personnel?
Yeah, that's obviously – that's what I want to do when I go out there. I don't want to be the one making the plays. I just want to get it to these playmakers. That's always been my philosophy. And we got some good ones here. And that's been fun just seeing them work in practice. It's only been a couple weeks, obviously, but seeing it live in a game like today, even Jets just catching a little deep slant and turning it into whatever he did, 30, 40 yards. It's fun for me to see that because my job is just 1, 2, 3, throw it and let them do the hard work. And so that's really the goal every time. I don't want to be running around trying to make plays. It happens, but it's fun to kind of see that and see those guys come to life like that.
Carson, what were the emotions out of the tunnel when you go over to your girls and you guys had that moment?
Yeah, now we've been doing that in a couple different uniforms, but that moment as a family was pretty special. It always is. It's something I don't take for granted. Seeing my beautiful wife and my beautiful 3 little girls standing there, they are so fired up to come to these games. They're already doing the Skol chants. They got it down. So for me to come out and just get that breath of fresh air with just my family, remind me to put my brain and my mind in that perspective of there's so much more to life than just this football game. That kind of helps me have a comfort when I go out and play with a little sense of peace that's a little different. So seeing them, that meant a lot, always does to me.
Lot to unpack there from his press conference yesterday. Let's start with a couple things. First, his demeanor. That is a veteran quarterback speaking there after going through the trials of what he's gone through the last 6 years. And frankly, when he said, you don't want me out there running around trying to make plays, no, you don't. That's frankly where he's gotten in trouble, where he's thrown interceptions in his time, whether it be in Philly, in Indianapolis, or Washington. I think it's impressive to see what he did. Now, he did exactly what he needed to do. The Vikings defense was great. He got the ball to the playmakers who could do it, and they did it, which he said there. And Cincinnati is depleted. I think Cincinnati defensively is bad. Kind of stunned that the Bengals won their first 2 games. That notwithstanding, what you can do with a offensive line intact. Christian Darrisaw played for 2 quarters yesterday, and that was, according to O'Connell, exactly what they wanted to do. That, when you have your starting left tackle, all-pro caliber left tackle back, that changes a lot. Now, Tracy Wolfson, who was on the sidelines for CBS, reported yesterday after talking with O'Connell that J.J. McCarthy is going to go to London and Dublin, but the anticipation is he is not going to play, that he's going to be back after the bye week, which is what initially Adam Schefter reported, that Wentz would be the guy for the game against Cincinnati, and then the 2 games here with Pittsburgh and Cleveland coming up. Then they have the bye week, and then the Eagles come back out of the bye, which is not necessarily how you want to ease into the schedule. But I was impressed by his tone yesterday. That's a guy that's went through it. And we talked with Carson last February, prior to the Super Bowl, and has been through the battles here, has taken the hits publicly. A lot of them have been self-induced on that, frankly, in my opinion. And I don't know if he's seen the battle scars, both publicly, personally. He came out and played a good game yesterday. Poll question today. You can vote at Hot Mike WDAY. Your evaluation of Carson Wentz's performance yesterday. Pleasantly surprised? I think I'm there as you thought. Or is it a one-game wonder? Viking fans are certainly hoping it's not that, knowing they're going to have him for the next couple until McCarthy comes back. You got to give props to Kevin O'Connell as well. I think O'Connell has certainly earned his nickname as the QB whisperer for what he did with Sam Darnold. Heck, look what he did with Daniel Jones. We joke about it, but Jones was with the Vikes for 5-6 weeks. Look what he's done with Indianapolis. He may have saved Daniel Jones' career. Heck of a debut yesterday down at U.S. Bank Stadium. The other scores, crazy day yesterday. There were 7 different games at the end that were decided in the final minute and a half. The Vikings game was not one of them. Green Bay certainly was, to the dismay of a few of our participants in the eliminator. The Browns rallied to beat the Packers. There was no rally needed with the Colts. Tampa Bay rallied and beat the Jets. Crazy finish there. Crazy finish in Philly. The Eagles beat the Rams on a blocked field goal at the end. Chargers got a late field goal to beat the Broncos. Atlanta, what happened there? Got shut out by Carolina. Bears got a big win. San Francisco got a late field goal. And the Chiefs beat the Giants in a Sunday night stinker last night. And we'll wrap it up with Monday Night Football, which we'll chat about later on in the show. But a dynamite, or especially the early games yesterday, dynamite finishes there across the National Football League. As you saw the standings, with the Packer loss, the Vikings are 2-1. We'll see the Lions play tonight. They've got a chance to get to 2-1. And the Bears got their first win. They're off the schneid after they beat Dallas. So that is the NFC North standings through 2+ weeks, with the Lions and Ravens coming up tonight. Also yesterday in the Minnesota smorgasbord of action, Game 1 of the WNBA semifinals at Target Center. Lynx facing the Mercury. Phoenix had to beat the Liberty on Friday in a deciding Game 3, then fly to Minneapolis. And boy, they took it to the Lynx early on in this game. Alyssa Thomas, who keeps racking up double-doubles, puts the Mercury up by 3. Up by 5 here. Drive in the finish on Nafisa Collier, who did not win the MVP. Phoenix rolling here right before the end of the half. They get the turnover and the lay-in. They're up here by 9 points. They go up by 7 into the halftime locker room. Courtney Williams pull-up jumper. How clutch was she, remember, in the first round? Drains that. Now it's a 1-point game. On the drive and the finish, Collier scores. Now the Lynx are up 54-53. Move to the fourth quarter. Off-balance shot. That one goes. Lynx are up 7. Williams just glide. Nobody picked her up. All of a sudden, they're up double digits. Williams was sensational. The feed down low. That one, the clincher. She had 23 points, 7 assists. Lynx pull away and beat the Mercury 82-69, the final, to take game 1 of this. Of course, this round is best of 5. Big win for the Lynx. Now, the big hubbub yesterday, Asia Wilson was announced as the WNBA MVP for the 4th time. What this is going to come down to when you look stat-wise is that Collier missed 11 games. They played 44. She played 33. I think Wilson missed 4 games, and that ended up being the deciding vote, even though Nafisa's stat line was tremendous all year long. Ended up not being enough in the eyes of the voters. Hard to believe that the team with the best record doesn't win the MVP, doesn't win Coach of the Year. I don't believe got Most Improved Player. They got the Best Defensive Player, which Cheryl Reeve will love that, but hard to stomach when you win the league title outright in terms of regular season best record and don't have any individual awards. Odd. Game 1 in the books, though, goes to the Lynx. Game 2 comes up Tuesday at Target Center. Again, it's best of 5 there. The other series saw Indiana, without Caitlin Clark, maybe playing better, knocks off Vegas on the road yesterday. So they lead that series 1 game to none. Each of those will resume coming up tomorrow night with Game 2s, both in Vegas and in Minneapolis. All right, last before we go and set up our show, the Minnesota Twins played their final game at Target Field yesterday in front of family and friends. Now, heading into this one, Saturday, I hope you enjoyed your Saturday however you wanted to spend it. If you had tickets to Target Field, I apologize immediately. The Twins got blanked in both ends of their doubleheader. Shutout during the day and shutout at night. First time that's happened since 1961, since the team was in Washington. Right? Not great. Hadn't given the fans a whole lot to cheer about. Yesterday, they did in their finale with the Guardians. By the way, Cleveland came in winners of 10 in a row. I'm showing you these shots because there's nobody there. There's a point to that at the end of the story. Twins bats finally awoken in the final game of this series. That's a Cody Clemens base hit. Brooks Lee got into one with a 2-run homer. Makes it a 3-2 Minnesota lead. Why wouldn't they win their final game at home? Royce Lewis with a big blast here in the 7th inning with a 3-run shot. That made it a 6-2 Minnesota score. Twins would go on and win by that amount. Simeon Woods Richardson got the start yesterday with a solid game, went 5 innings, struck out 3. This is the final out. Twins finished their home mark, a record of 38-43 at home. They're 67-89 on the season after winning. The loss is a big one for Cleveland because the Tigers got swept at home by Atlanta. So as you wake up this morning with 1 week to go, this is where we're at in the American League playoff race. The Blue Jays are going to be the number 1 seed. With the way the Tigers are going, and now, by the way, look at Seattle. Seattle is now leapfrogged as well. The Mariners have been outstanding as they took care of business against the Astros. The wild card race, the Yankees have the top spot there, with the Red Sox 3 games back in the loss column, and then Cleveland, the Guardians, are there. And by the way, Cleveland's not worrying about the wild card. They want the division. They are a game back of Detroit, and they play each other starting tomorrow. Let's go. That's what you want down the stretch. The Astros right now are tied with the Guardians. Cleveland has the tiebreaker there on Houston heading into the final week in the American League. In the National League, Milwaukee and Philadelphia will battle it out for the top spot overall in the National League. The Dodgers hold the 3 seed. Then the Cubs and Padres, and now the Cincinnati Reds have overtaken the Mets for the final wild card spot because the Mets can't beat the Nationals. So Cincinnati has the tiebreaker because they have the head-to-head on the Mets, now has the final spot for the National League wildcard race. And by the way, the Diamondbacks, who sold as well at the deadline, are just a game back of the Metropolitans, who don't have a tiebreaker on anybody. So that's where we're at heading into the final week of the season. Only 3 games today. It's a light day across baseball today, involving no teams chasing any playoff hopes. Only the Brewers are playing today. Padres are locked in. Everything will start tomorrow in terms of playoff battle, where the Mets play the Cubs. I'm going to open a vein on this later in the week. I cannot do it today because we got too much stuff going on. But if you can't beat the Nationals 2 out of 3, you don't deserve to go to the playoffs. That's it. We got a packed show coming up for you here today. We'll salute our best of the weekend coming up in just a few minutes. Our guy Sam Herder will join us at 9:35 to recap the weekend it was at FCS football. There's a couple of headline performances we got to talk about. One out of New Jersey, the other out of Missouri. We'll get to that coming up in just a little bit. Jeff Kolpack will be with us at 10 o'clock. The Bison bye week is done. North Dakota State opens Missouri Valley Football Conference play on Saturday with South Dakota as the Coyotes come in. And at 10:35, we will do our high school football recap of the weekend. Some dynamite finishes we got to show you, whether it was out west in Bismarck or a couple of curb stompings that went down. We'll get to that to wrap up the high school football weekend coming up at 10:35. That and a heck of a lot more here on a busy Monday. We're glad you're joining us. We're just getting started on Overreaction Monday. Hot mic off and roll. We're back after this on WDAY Extra, KSFL, KMBN, and Inforum.com. All right, it's time for our best of the weekend. We do it each and every Monday in this time slot. No shortage of things to discuss this weekend. Now, if you were itching for college football, Bison were off, the Jackrabbits were off, UND played nobody. Saturday night, WDAY, we had Miami and Florida facing off. And if you decided to tune in, I'm interested for you Bison fans, how are you reacting when you saw this guy tearing it up for Miami on Saturday night? One, Sharmar Marty Brown, who had a monster game for the Hurricanes, scores here on a typical Marty touchdown run, barreling in from a yard out to give the Canes an early lead. We saw that how many times, especially late last year. Then we didn't see this a whole lot in the NDSU offense. How about a little one-handed catch and then using some great ability to get loose for a big run. Look at that little one-handed grab from the Omaha North standout. Then he used it on the ground, pile driving guys, pushing the pile forward on a Florida team that was already in bad shape. Marty was doing a little bit of everything. Here he finished off another drive, leaping into the end zone for a touchdown and a Miami win. Marty finished with 80 yards on the ground, 2 rushing touchdowns, another 53 yards receiving in a 26-7 win. I got this email as well late Saturday night. Wow, did Marty Brown and Cole Wisniewski look good? Impact players on high-level teams. Fun to watch their success. Do Bison fans cheer for these players? I find myself rooting for them like Bison in the NFL. I may be in the minority. That is an excellent question. Because I'm not sure. I think there's different emotions attached to each of these guys. Cole Wisniewski had a big game. If you watch Texas Tech bludgeon Utah Saturday morning, Cole was all over the place. I think he had 8 tackles in the game for Texas Tech. I think the emotions attached to the guys that left varies from fan to fan. Marty, I think a lot of fans say, hey, he helped us win the national championship. He was the Jerry Rice winner. Tip your hat to him. Cole Wisniewski didn't play at all last year. I think there's probably a lot of hurt feelings around that. Again, don't blame the guy if he wants to go improve himself, prove that he can play at a higher level. I think it varies from fan to fan on their emotional attachment to said player. Now, Friday night, we had a couple of dynamite high school games. Game that we televised on Extra between Wayzata and Moorhead came right down to the wire. The Spuds looked dynamite in the first half and then had to pull one out of the fire to end it. They looked dynamite because of this guy. David Mack was sensational for Moorhead, their junior wide receiver who's getting some big-time looks. He's been offered by a handful of schools, Sacramento State being one, North Dakota State is another. Caught a touchdown here using his size that he so often can do. But this is why he's getting looked at by bigger schools. Goes up and makes a dynamite catch at the top of the apex, is what they say in the receiving world. This is why he's being looked at the way he is. Now, the next play, he dropped one that he should have caught that, again, is probably reason why he's being looked at where he's at. Now, late in the game, Spuds are down after Wayzata had a furious fourth quarter comeback, made a couple of big catches to keep the drive alive. Then, with the Spuds down 6, he gets open for a 30-yard touchdown that ends up being the game-winning score. Spuds had to kick the extra point to take the lead, but a big-time night for David Mack. 2 touchdowns, including the game winner, and a Spud victory to get them to 3-1 on the year. Again, they're playing without their star quarterback in Jet Feeney, who's out with a scapula injury. Don't think he's going to be back this week. They got the defending state champs in Maple Grove coming to town. But a heck of a performance from Mr. Mack. Also, talk about dynamite finishes. We got another one out west. We previewed it last week. Legacy moved to the number 1 ranking in 3A football for the first time. Welcoming in West Fargo Horace, who had lost to Kindred, remember, in their debut year in 3A football. And you had an outstanding finish here. Matthew Dick hits Aiden Green here on a touchdown to make it a 7-0 Horace lead. Now, Legacy answers. They score 13 unanswered. Now, late in the game, and I'm talking late, no time left. Green scores a touchdown with no time left on the clock to tie the game at 13. They have to kick the extra point. Does Horace, or we go to overtime, snap down, kick was up, it's good. Horace gets a monster road victory, scoring the game-tying touchdown with no time left on the clock to beat Legacy 14-13. Congratulations to Harvey McMahon's team. They've had some big wins. They won the state championship last year. That one, though, that sets you up. Now, remember, we got league play starting this week, but that is a huge win for Horace, who's now 3-1. They got North coming up this weekend. Congratulations. Talk about pulling one out of the fire. That's exactly what they did. with some late game drama on the road in Bismarck on Friday. That is our best of the weekend. We do it each and every Monday. You can submit your claims at wday.com. We'll break. We come back. Our guy Sam Herder will join us to look back at the week it was in FCS football. A couple of standout performances. We'll highlight that when Hot Mike returns after this. All right, fast-moving Monday show. Overreaction Monday style back on this beautiful September morning. All right, we do it each and every Monday at 9:35, roughly or thereabout. We talk with our guy Sam Herder from Hero Sports BetMGM to recap the weekend that was at FCS football. Yes, a weekend still happened. I know the Bison and the Jackrabbits didn't play, but there were games that went down. We were just visiting off air at a couple teams that were surprising. I would say overall there were a couple of really good games. What did we learn, I guess, with the Bison and the Jacks not playing out of this weekend in your mind?
Yeah, I think we saw, it was interesting that Montana State's, they had a similar performance as South Dakota State did last week, where they won by 2-3 scores, but it was kind of just kind of a ho-hum performance. And Montana State was up 17-0 at halftime against Mercyhurst, and you thought, okay, this is going to be a 42-0 ball game. But then they just didn't score the rest of the way, and their defense held strong. And so it was like a 17-0 win for Montana State, but you kind of left there going, I don't know, that wasn't that great of a performance. And, meanwhile, Montana dominated Indiana State and looked really, really good and confident. Tarleton State keeps on rolling. They lost their starting quarterback, Victor Cabalas, which could be a major, major injury because I think he's, top 10, top 5 quarterback in the FCS. He had a boot on his foot, so we'll see what the status is for him. But Daniel Greek stepped in and, played really well, and they continue to dominate inferior FCS opponents. This is their third straight game of 50-plus points for Tarleton State. And then you had, Monmouth looked really good in a ranked opponent. I thought Abilene Christian looked really good as well against a ranked opponent. So we're getting, resumes filled out a little bit more with some ranked matchups, and overall things are starting to I don't know if we don't know a whole lot, as far as how things are going to shake out, but certainly as more games are being played, we're going to learn some more.
Sam, I have an email I want to read to you that I got before the show started today. Dom, the inherent historical allegiance to the Missouri Valley Football Conference and Big Sky is so obvious in the current FCS polling. Based on 2025 so far, there is absolutely no reason Tarleton State should not be at worst number 2 in the country. They have a case to be number 1, given NDSU's ridiculous schedule has been that of a JV team. By the way, I'm a longtime Missouri Valley Football Conference supporter. What do you make of that?
I mean, you could kind of go in circular arguments all day about that. Does Tarleton State, if we're just looking at this year and this year only, have an argument that, they're a top 2 team in the country? Yeah, but at the same time, you can also, maybe it is historical bias, but you can look at past years as kind of a starting point of how you view some teams. And just because you beat an FBS opponent doesn't mean you're one of the best teams in the country. In fact, last year, half of the teams, actually four of the 6 teams that beat FBS opponents last year didn't even make it past the second round. 3 of them didn't even make the playoffs. Beating up on Mississippi Valley State and Chattanooga and Central Arkansas, that doesn't necessarily mean you're a top team, in the country. And yeah, maybe there's a little bit of bias of we just assume NDSU is better than Tarleton State, just like we assumed the Dakota and Montana Powers were better than UIW in 2022 or Furman in 2023. Yeah, maybe there is some bias in that assumption, but 95% of the time that assumption and that quote-unquote bias ends up being correct, in the FCS playoffs. And so I get the argument of you just need to look at this year and not previous years, and not look at how things shake out historically. At the same time, there's that argument of, well, we've seen this story before of a team that looks really good in the regular season, and then they can't just physically match up. So I do think Tarleton is really good.
I do too. I
think I'm not totally sure about their offensive line. I think they're pretty good on the offensive line, but I don't think they're necessarily dominant. But they got great receivers, great quarterback play, great depth at running back. I do think defensively they look better than they were last year. I think they look tougher, more stout, more depth. Especially in the front 7 compared to last year, which is what they need. But I want to see how they do throughout UAC play. If they go undefeated throughout UAC play, then I think top 3,
I'm with you. Yep.
But just being a little bit more patient right now on Tarleton.
And I would say just one last point on that before we move on. They won a game in the playoffs. Be a top 8, make the final 8. Heck, if you win that, then I'm ready to consider it. I know they're good. You wrote about it yesterday. Beating Army gets my attention because Army won 10 games last year. That's a good win. But beating up on who they've beating up, I'm not gonna go crazy yet. Because look, Illinois State won on Saturday, Sam, but got pushed to double overtime with North Alabama. That's not great. I'm not ready to. Well, okay, just because they won, I'm going to keep them at number 4 in the poll. I didn't do that. I don't believe you did that.
Yeah, and it's difficult too to really know for sure how teams match up. Because we've seen teams that look really, really good in the regular season, and then they flame out in the playoffs just because it is a different level. It is a different level when we're talking about different conferences, and again maybe that is a little bit of bias, but again we've seen that play out year over year, and it's just tough to know how teams match up for sure. And even I've heard coaches say that, like every now and then in the playoffs, like coaches, you'll talk to them and be like, from what we've seen on film, like we feel really good about this game. There's other matchups in the playoffs where like we just don't know. Like this team looks terrific against SoCon opponents or Southland opponents, but like we don't know exactly how we're going to match up. And it ends up, afterwards you talk to them and they're like, yeah, they just weren't very good, or they were better than we thought. Like we didn't know for sure matched up because there's no crossover opponents, and so we just don't know for sure until like we see the playoffs hit. But I think for now, Tarleton certainly deserves a certain level of respect, and it's not like there's some ho-hum program either. Like they had 23,000 at their game, and they have great facilities, they have great NIL, and I'm sure they're revenue sharing, and so this isn't some like random small school out there coming up through the ranks. I do think they deserve certain levels of respect, but call it bias, but you can probably say, well, I think NDSU is better than Tarleton, right now, based off of what we saw and just based off of maybe some past precedent.
My guy, Lewis Walker, former Bison assistant, is the DC at Monmouth. He's trying to tell me to give some respect to Monmouth. Do we give it to him after what they did to Villanova on Saturday?
Well, tell them to get that defense going a little bit more. But like Monmouth, they're gonna score points on anyone. It's a matter of if their defense can get enough stops, which is what they did. I thought Monmouth, despite giving up, I think it was 33 points, I did think their defense played well overall. And I mean, they don't need to allow less than 20 points in the game. Monmouth could allow 28 points per game defensively and be ranked the 70th defense in the FCS, and they're still going to win a lot of games. And I mean, Monmouth doesn't have a ranked opponent on the rest of their schedule. Neither does Rhodey. So we could have Monmouth and Rhodey undefeated versus FCS teams with no ranked wins. We'll see if New Hampshire is ranked, when they play them. But I think Monmouth is going to be a scary team. And they're not just necessarily an aerial attack as well, because they do have a pretty decent offensive line. They can run the ball. Derek Robertson he's probably one game away from already reaching 2,000 yards. He's already at 18 touchdown passes, so he's really good.
Yeah.
I will say that he probably is a front runner for the Walter Payton.
I was going to ask you that. Yeah.
But if Cole Payton has a season like Cam Miller did last year, or Chase Mason has a season like Tommy Mellott did last year, I don't think it's necessarily a given that Robertson wins it, because this award is voted on after the regular season. Mm-hmm. And last year, Robertson had 1,500 more passing yards than Cam Miller, even more than that than Mellott, and Robertson didn't even make the top 3 in voting. And so just because he's going to throw for 4,000 yards, he'll probably, he's going to be, a front runner, but if another quarterback, out there has a Mellott-like season or a Miller-like season, I don't think it's a given that Robertson wins it just yet.
Monmouth is moved up in my poll. I believe they did in yours as well. Are they the best team in that league in the CAA in your mind? Or is it Rhode Island?
I wish they played each other,
right?
So we could figure that out on the field, but with the unbalanced scheduling, that's not going to happen. And they don't play, many more ranked opponents.
No.
Like I said, if any, I think they both have New Hampshire on their schedule, but UNH is probably going to drop out after they lost to Dartmouth.
Yep.
So I don't know. I think Rhodey is a more complete team overall. AJ Pena for Rhodey is a really good, maybe perhaps the best defensive player in the FCS. And then Monmouth maybe has the best offensive player in the FCS, and Derek Robertson. I think they're both good. I think they could, one or two, both be a quarterfinal team. I'm not sure how they would stack up if they had to go to a Montana or a Dakota team. But again, maybe that's just bias of us assuming that Montana is just better than Rhodey just because it's, Montana. Maybe that is assumption, but maybe it's a safe assumption.
But we've seen it. Yeah, we've seen that act before. Until they beat them, I'm not going to go there. I think you're in the same boat. This is what Monmouth has left, by the way. Delaware State, Towson, Stony Brook, Hampton, Bryant, UNH, North Carolina A&T, Albany. They're going to be 11-1, man. Nobody's going to beat them, right? I don't see that.
I mean, Youngstown just beat Towson.
Yeah.
Stony Brook, I thought was maybe a playoff-worthy team. They've kind of fallen off. Again, New Hampshire, maybe they'll bubble back up. But I mean, Monmouth did play Villanova, who was ranked number 11 at the time. We'll see how Nova finishes
I don't think
out.
they're any good either, though.
And we saw it with Rhodey last year, who hits, I think it was 10 wins, and they still didn't get a top 8 seed.
No, they played. They played Thanksgiving weekend. You're right.
Yep, because I don't think they had any ranked wins on their resume. If they did, they had one against a team that dropped out of the ranking. So we say it all the time. It's a blessing and a curse for the CAA when you have that many teams in there. You can have a really good record, but you can be punished because you don't play a whole lot of ranked teams.
Let's talk some Valley. Southern Illinois is on my radar, and I know SEMO's not good. I think we saw that in Fargo. Proven again. Southern Illinois scored 31 first half points, but DJ Williams, their transfer quarterback from Murray State, who actually we saw in Fargo a couple years ago, he got hurt early in last year, totally derailed SIU's season. Is it time to start paying closer attention to Southern Illinois now, Sam?
Yeah, I think they are kind of in that second tier in the FCS of a team that is going to be, dangerous. And I think NDSU goes to SIU. I'm not sure who else they get, but it's an opponent where definitely can give some top teams scares. And DJ Williams has been awesome this year, close to 1,000 yards passing, 9 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. He also has a team high 316 rushing yards and 7 scores, and he's kind of picked up where he left off last year. That was an unfortunate injury for him because he was lights out last year too, and I think his best game was against UIW. That certainly raised a lot of attention for Williams, and he ended up missing the rest of last year due to that injury. But he was a big reason why a lot of people were high on SIU. The Salukis were just snake bit by injuries last year. Even like Colin Bohannock, their star linebacker, he's back this year. He's playing well, but he missed most of last season as well. But Williams has been very, very good. Dual threat abilities have been awesome. And, SIU was, 2 years ago, they were close to making it to the quarterfinals. And I think they can be that type of team once again, just from what I've seen so far.
Yeah, that's right. They lost that game to Idaho in a tight game there. They come to Fargo in a couple weeks, actually, for this is what they have after their bye, because everybody in the Valley except the Bison and the Jacks are off this week. Indiana State at the Bison, home for UND. Suddenly that game looks awfully, awfully interesting in the middle of October. They go to Murray. They go to Youngstown. They don't play the Jacks this year, so that's a major advantage for SIU, and they host USD in the next to last game of the season at Illinois State. I look at the end of the year for them, that could be for a seed maybe, depending if they play as well as they have.
Yeah, and that's a pretty favorable schedule. We'll see it where USD is at, but that's probably a favorable one there. And if you can split the games against the North Dakota teams, probably lose in Fargo and perhaps beat UND at home, like you're sitting pretty good there for a playoff seed.
All right, South Dakota's up next, and they beat Drake on Saturday. They did what they were supposed to do. How do you feel any differently about the Coyotes that you do today than you did, say, 2 weeks ago?
A little bit, but still, kind of a little wary about their performance against Lamar and certainly their performance against Northern Colorado. And you could really kind of twist your brain into a pretzel because you could say, well, South Dakota beat Drake more handedly than South Dakota State did. But you could also say that, well, maybe Drake was a little more beat up, or South Dakota, I would assume, was playing with much more urgency in this game than South Dakota State was. The Oats or the Jacks were probably, emotional letdown, looking forward to the bye week, let Drake hang around a little bit more. Meanwhile, the Yotes were saying, okay, we gotta win this game and win handily, or else we're gonna run the risk of falling out of the ranking. So it's tough to compare in that sense. But you did see, I think the one thing you wanted to see with South Dakota in this game, especially offensively, was just to see things start to click. Whether it was timing or a little bit continuity on the offensive line, or Bauman being a little bit more on the same page with his receivers, and that's, I think, exactly what you saw. So it's certainly potentially a launching point for South Dakota. Obviously, the true gauge will be this week when they go to NDSU, and the Bison have had a couple of weeks to prepare for.
Yeah.
I don't know if they'll say it in press conference or interviews, but I'm sure there's a certain level of revenge factor on the mind of NDSU. So perhaps USD will go into the Hornets' nest a little bit this weekend, but maybe they execute well, put on a good game plan, and I don't really expect USD to win, honestly. But if they can keep it competitive, that's okay. Maybe they're back rising up and playing a lot better than they were.
Before we go, let's do your spotlight games. That game is one of them. Obviously, the USD NDSU game, a fun one late Saturday night in the Big Sky. Idaho, Montana, going to get some national television, and that's a prove-it game, I think, for both teams. Idaho could be 4-0. I know they're not, but they could be 4-0 with 2 FBS wins.
Yeah, the Vandals, they lost by 1 score against Washington State, also lost by 1 score this last weekend to San Jose State. So, both Washington State and San Jose State, maybe not the best FBS teams, but still not only almost beat them, but have leads in the fourth quarter. I certainly feel like Idaho thinks, that they could be 4-0 at this point. And then Montana, this is an interesting game for them because they played a D2 opponent in their first game, kind of choppy in the first half before pulling away. And then Montana, of course, beats UND. The Grizz didn't look great for 75% of that game and then come back and win.
Nope.
And then they dominate Indiana State this last week and look really, really good. But Indiana State's not very good and down to their backup quarterback. And at the same time, Montana State was somewhat struggling against Mercyhurst, and so I know a lot of Grizz fans want them to be ranked ahead of Montana State, and maybe there's an argument, for that. I think if the Grizz beat Idaho this weekend, that's now 2 ranked wins, and I think maybe you can then push the Grizz up. So that is a really good gauge for both of those teams. We talked about South Dakota and NDSU. That's another good one, another ranked matchup. Abilene Christian goes to UIW.
I like that one. I like that game.
UIW is not going to be ranked anymore, but we'll see. They're 1-3 now, just lost to ranked Northern Arizona. Abilene Christian looks really, really good. I know the final score was decent against Austin Peay, but Abilene Christian really dominated that game. And then the last one, I'll throw in an FCS versus FBS. Rhodey goes to Western Michigan. If Rhodey wants to be a top 8 seed, they might need this one.
Beat them.
Yep. They might not have another resume boosting win. Western Michigan is not very good. I think they're 1-2 right now, something like that. So this is a key game for Rhodey to have a win on their resume that kind of jumps off the page.
Any wins over Maction should be automatic. You get seated for that. Looking forward to another great weekend, especially a couple of those games you mentioned on Saturday. Thanks for the time as always, bud. Be well. We'll talk to you next week, okay?
All right. Sounds good. Thank you.
There we go. Sam Herder joins us each and every Monday to give us the lowdown on FCS football. Get you ready for the Bison and the Coyotes. We'll have coverage of that all week long here on The Big Show. We'll break. We come back. We'll wrap up our first hour. Jeff Kolpack coming up in hour 2. And our high school football recap. A couple of some dynamite games and performances over the weekend. Back on Overreaction Monday after this. Quick first hour in the books. We come back. Jeff Kolpack will join us. North Dakota State back on the football field. We'll preview the matchup with South Dakota and a bunch more. We come back after this.
This is Hot Mike. Hot Mike. On the networks of WDAY. Here's Dom Izzo. It's that time. An author.
Offensive production, number 1. Number 2. I forgot.
Golfer.
It'd be like going on a 3-person best shot, and we were saying, Kolpack, you got to make a 25-footer every time. You wouldn't putt first. I'd have Tim putt first.
And one heck of a TV personality.
This game is for the Cooper Cup.
It's the Forum's Jeff Kolpack.
4! I should have yelled 2.
All right, here he is. Our guy, Jeff Kolpack, joins us each and every Monday. His appearances are brought to us by Northwestern Mutual. Did you have a nice off weekend?
It was off.
Yeah?
That's all I can say. It was fantastically
Good for
off.
you.
Did some golfing with high school friends.
Yeah?
And beat them.
As par for the course. No pun intended on that.
It's always competition.
We had an email come in. I had 12 o'clock at night on Sunday morning, which is always great, to ask you a question, which is always dynamite. I don't know if you saw our first hour because we featured Marty Brown and a couple touchdowns
I saw that.
for Miami.
Watched him.
Cole Wisniewski had a big day for Texas Tech. And the simple question was, Do Bison fans cheer for these players? I found myself rooting for their team like Bison in the NFL, maybe a minority. What does Kolpack think?
Well, I don't cheer for him. I don't cheer for anybody.
No, but I guess he's asking, do Bison fans cheer for him? And I said, I think it depends for the individual fan how they left.
I would say more Marty Brown than Cole Wisniewski. Does that make sense?
I think you're right. Because the way Cole left, left certainly a sour taste, and I think a lot of coaches' minds, and I think certainly fans' minds. Marty helped win a national championship, scored a touchdown in the championship game, and then left after a year being here.
Here's what I didn't like about Cole, and I said this on the show last year at when he left, actually at about the same time, that he's rehabbing the whole fall season with the aim to get back into the playoffs and play. And so you have a student manager or a student trainer helping him all fall.
Assigned to him, basically.
Pretty much. Yep. And so this person, probably a young man or young woman, got up at 6 a.m. or working him out all the time. And the reward for that person is to see him get back on the field. And then they go through all those rehab stuff, and then he leaves.
Yep.
And so this person, the student trainer, who put so many hours into Cole Wisniewski, basically, thanks for doing that.
I think it surrounds how, and this is fair or not, how the individual leaves. Like Marquis Siegel, I don't know if there was a lot of, there probably with fans when he left,
right?
Because it was right before the playoffs. There was certainly bad feelings then, but then to see what he did, and he played for Chris Kleiman, so I think that took a lot of the temperature down with it. And he was a really good player at Kansas State. Now he's playing. He started 3 games in the NFL. I think there's no hostility there, Kolpack.
But there's some cases where the old once a Bison, always
Correct.
a Bison.
Yep. I think we went through with Jabril Cox. Honestly, when Jabril left, I think there was wait a minute, he's going to go play at LSU, and obviously there was a lot of circumstance surrounding that because that was the COVID fall, and the Bison weren't going to play football.
Well, I guess
that fall anyway.
Are you old school or not?
Yeah, I think in 2025 you have to be.
Yeah, I think you have to give that up.
You got to be flexible on that. Yeah, if you want to, be that way, right?
Bison,
and
doesn't apply anymore.
That's a perfect segue. What I want to talk about with you, because this week is Hall of Fame weekend.
True.
And you've written about this. We've talked about it before. I think we're finally out of the D2 era. I hope. Because we got a backload of D1 guys. But you wrote about this. Like, what's going to be to get into the Bison Athletic Hall of Fame going forward? If you play 3 years, like Cole Wisniewski he was actually here for 4 years. You know what I mean? He started for 3, won a national championship.
So you're saying is when you leave, and it goes into my argument about Paul Hatchett.
Yeah.
Paul Hatchett did not leave on good terms.
No.
He was not a good person.
Yep.
And his stepbrothers said as much when I wrote about it a few years ago. He is not in the Hall of Fame.
His athletic career would tell you it's a no-brainer. Correct.
100%.
Yeah. But
so if
I don't know, that all depends on who votes for it.
You know what I'm getting at?
Yeah,
here?
I do. I think
what are the guardrails
honestly
here?
To me, like the Baseball Hall of Fame, which is the hardest one to get into, says there's obviously what you've done on the field, but there also is the ethics clause that's put into there. That should go factor into.
And obviously, Paul
consider.
Hatchett is not in the Hall of Fame because of the ethics clause or the character clause
Correct.
or what do you want?
Yep.
So if you leave the team, is that a character
See,
flaw?
I don't think so. It can't be considered that. I'm interested going forward. Like Marty Brown played 1 year in any issue.
You're just writing my column right now.
There you go.
For this week.
Marty Brown played 1 year.
Right.
He was the freshman of the year and won a national championship.
Is that enough to be Hall of
I
Fame?
don't think so.
No. Nope. 1 year.
I do not think so.
Nope. Is
but
4?
Yeah, I do. With Cole Wisniewski, yeah, he should be thought of as a Bison. He was here for 4 years. This day and age, that's probably 2 years longer than some get. I think, honestly, going forward.
Well, Trey Lance was here for 2 years.
See, that's a great question. Well, 3. He was 18. He redshirted in 18, right? 19, and he left during the 20 whatever debacle.
2 years and 1 game.
2.5.
That's not even a half.
Is
2
Trey
years
Lance
and 1
a
game.
Hall of Famer? The answer is yes. Right.
So what's the difference between 1 year and 2 years? Marty Brown is Jerry Rice Award
So
winner.
is Trey Lance. Trey Lance was the Walter Payton winner and won a national championship. I think that extra year, I think it counts for something. I do. I'm telling you right now.
So 2 years, yes. 1 year, no.
Yes. Yep. If we're not going to induct anybody going forward, it's just you know what I mean. Like we're going to 20 years from now when they come around to
there's
part of the deal.
So many football players. I don't know how they're going to do it.
I'm just saying it's an argument we can have on a show like this, or a discussion we can have on a show like this, because this weekend Craig Dahl's going in. Slam dunk, no brainer.
Yep.
Joe Chapman's going in, which again, slam dunk, no discussion on that. But as we get into 20 years from now, let's say it's okay, so it's 2045.
Say the 2013 team.
Yeah. Well, the whole team is going in, first off, right? They do that.
Is that what you do? You just say, okay.
I think you're going to have to start doing that because you're going to lead off some dudes
There's 10 teams that have won titles.
Well, aren't all of them, I don't know if this, maybe you do, are all the national championship teams in to the Bison Athletic Hall of Fame?
I think so, but I don't know.
So they have a little leeway in if they wanted to do that. But it's a discussion point I'm sure be brought up as we go forward, because I'm interested about that. In 2045, how are we going to look back and say a guy that was here for 2.5 years, was huge, impact guy, but decided to go in the transfer portal?
Yep.
Is he in a Bison Athletic Hall of Famer? I don't know. Grant Nelson. Is Grant Nelson in the Bison Athletic Hall of Fame to you?
Yeah.
I do. I agree.
Yep.
His numbers aren't going to wow, but it's an eyesight thing. You know what I mean? You had to have been there.
I think it's
right?
It feels right. It's
correct.
It's
a feel thing. It's an eye and a feel thing on it, on that. Anyway, I got sidetracked. But that was I thought it was an interesting email, and I wanted to throw it at you.
I don't know the way Cole left. I'm not a fan, but
yep. But numbers-wise, he did, he was an All-American, first-team All-American. I think he had 8 picks. Isn't that the most, I think, in a Bison season, or tied for the most in one individual season? That to me is pretty darn good.
Hey, I left the Bison baseball team after 2 years, but that had nothing to do with that. Had all to do with I wasn't very good.
Yep.
So am I eligible?
For your past deeds, probably not. You're probably going to get disqualified there. What'd you make of Carson's game yesterday?
Solid. Yeah, I thought he was solid. I thought he did what he had to do. He didn't panic. He didn't throw interceptions. Didn't try to do it all himself. Yep. I thought he did what he needed to do. Like I just said, going forward now, if they get on a roll behind him, what do you do? Is it J.J. McCarthy? Is it his job?
I think it's J.J.'s whenever he's ready to go.
I didn't see the post-game press conference. I'm guessing somebody asked KLC that?
I believe so.
Who's your starting quarterback going forward?
I mean, that's going to be he's going to say it's J.J. McCarthy. I mean, Carson is you don't let Sam Darnold walk out the door after winning 14 games and turn it over to essentially a rookie unless this is certainly your plan.
Yeah.
But how Carson played yesterday was efficient with the ball. He got it where it needed to be, and you mentioned it, and I said it off the top. He didn't try to do too much because that's where he's gotten in trouble. And I really thought, listening to him in the postgame, I thought there was a learned answers there, that he's been through it. He's on a 6 different team in 6 years. It didn't end well in Philly.
Are you saying he's humbled a little bit?
I think so. It didn't end well in Indy. It didn't end well in Washington. You know, he's sitting on his couch looking for a starting job till November a couple years ago, until the Rams called. Because I think he firmly believed he was still a starter. I think he still firmly believed he was a starting quarterback heading into this year. And maybe, Jeff, if this goes well and he plays well, he can leverage that into potentially getting a starting job in 2026.
Well, he's 32 years old, and he hasn't been beat up recently.
No, correct, because he hasn't played. So his health-wise is as best it's been in a long time.
And quarterbacks go till 35, 36, 37. You look at Rodgers, what is he, 40?
Yeah, older than that. Yeah, Rodgers up there.
So the lifespan of a quarterback and the way they protect him, I think.
Well, that's the big thing. His all-pro left tackle was back yesterday. That makes things a heck of a lot easier there. But
what if he leads them to 2 wins in Europe? And looks good.
It's going to be a heck of a question to answer that Monday, because after their bye week when they come back from Europe is the Eagles. That's not even. I don't know.
Carson
played against the Eagles.
He's 6'5". He looks good. He looks a little slimmed down a little bit.
He did.
And Tom Brady couldn't move either. But Carson moves a little better than Tom Brady. I'm not saying he's Tom Brady.
Yeah.
But you don't have to be the dual threat quarterback, I think, to make it go in this league.
It's going to be if he ends up being the guy out of the break and they start him against the Eagles, look out. That would be a heck of a storyline there if he's playing Philadelphia in Minneapolis for the Vikings. For the Vikings of all teams. Just it's a wild deal there. Let's break. We come back. We got a bunch of other emails coming in on our topic we were just talking about. Plus, we want to talk about South Dakota. Bison are back on the gridiron this week as they've got the Coyotes coming to town. We'll do that with Jeff Kolpack back after this. All right, welcome back, everybody. Big weekend.
Can I have a clarification on why I left the Bison baseball team?
Yes.
I left to concentrate on my academics.
Oh, is that it? I don't think anybody believes that. Big weekend for Bison football, even though they didn't play this past weekend, that their starting outside linebacker got married. Congratulations to the Cops. We featured it last week on the show. There's Logan with now his new bride, Mariah. Got married here in town. One Jackson Duteneffer was there. I think there's another photo here. This is from Logan's mom. I see Ryan Jones. I see Cole Payton.
Is that the Plains Art Museum?
Might be. I see
Looks like
Duteneffer. I see Payton. I see Ryan Jones. I see Chris Harris. There was no shortage of Bison that were going to be either at the wedding or in the wedding.
Were
this
we
past
not invited
weekend.
to the wedding?
I did not get an invitation. I know the Cops fairly well, but we're going to be
It's actually
visiting with Logan
That
this
was
week.
a fun pregame show. It was during COVID, if you remember.
Yeah, it was.
Down in Missouri
Yep,
State.
had a good time down there. That was part of the many things that were happening FCS football-wise. Did you take anything away from the FCS minus the Bison and Jacks this weekend?
Northern Iowa losing at Utah
That
Tech.
is not good. Not good.
No.
We talked with Sam in the first hour. Southern Illinois looked pretty darn good. Destroying SEMO, and I don't think SEMO is going to be very good the
Illinois
rest of the
State,
way.
I watched that game.
Yeah,
at the end.
Illinois State had to go to double overtime.
They
Yeah.
should have lost.
Yeah.
Who was
North
it?
Alabama.
North
they played.
Alabama
Yeah.
scores with 33 seconds left. Just has to kick the extra point.
Missed it, right?
And
or was it blocked?
No, he boinks it off the upright to win the game.
And, that game was at home. That was in normal.
Yeah.
That is
and
not
there was
good.
nobody there.
Yeah.
And they showed the crowd.
Well, the weather was an issue too. They had a couple of weather delays during the game as well.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, they had
okay.
two separate weather delays. That game took forever, but that's not great for Illinois State. There's a game coming up, Jeffrey. The Salukis play up here October the 11th. The following week, they host UND. Suddenly, that game looks a heck of a lot more interesting than it did in July.
I think UND is looking really solid, too.
UND's been pretty good. They get their bye, and then it's on to Valley
That's
play
going
out
to
of
be
that.
a slobber knocker up there. The Bison and the Hawks.
No doubt. Let's chat this weekend. Here comes South Dakota. South Dakota was preseason number 4. And then they lose their first 2. They got curb stomped by Iowa State. They lost to Lamar. Now they've beaten Northern Colorado. They needed overtime to beat Northern Colorado. Should have lost that game.
Yep.
And then beat Drake rather handily on Saturday. What do you make of the Coyotes?
Pretty mundane team to me right now. I think they lost too many dudes in the
They
line of
definitely lost some
scrimmage.
dudes.
Brought their quarterback back, but that doesn't help when you lose 3 potential all-conference offensive linemen. Your 2 best defensive players are 3. Gary Bryant Jr.
Yeah, middle linebacker who's off playing at Syracuse now.
You lost a D-back. I mean, you just can't replace these guys, easily.
I think you have to take into account as well the backstory with these 2 teams coming in. USD's beaten the Bison each of the last 2 years in the regular season. Paulsek already addressed it during the press conference last week about preparation. Like, okay, they are focused for South Dakota coming in here.
And I think Travis Johansson, the USD coach, mentioned it as such at Missouri Valley Media Day when he goes, I don't know who did the schedule.
Yeah.
But they have a bye week before they play us, and we're playing 4 straight weeks.
Actually, they're playing 12, Kolpack. Their bye week is at the end of the year, which he was griping about that to me as well at Valley Media Day about that, which that's tough. To play 12 straight weeks, that's really, really difficult. But that's a heck of a way to start the year, the league year, knowing you got to come to Fargo and face a team there.
It's homecoming at NDSU.
Now, 2 years ago, they got the Bison on homecoming.
Yeah.
That was the stunner of, I can't say of stunners because South Dakota's done it before. The year that they beat the Bison in, 2015 when Carson got hurt, that was the stunner of stunners.
That was Bob Nielsen team, and I just don't know if this team under Travis is...
Well, They got a stud running back now. I mean, Pierre got hurt, and L.J. Phillips has come out of nowhere and is running rampant. He had 300 yards against UNC, and he had 4 touchdowns last week against Drake. So, I mean, they've got something there.
How come he didn't play before?
Yeah, that's like we've talked about that a handful of times about finding guys. Bauman has been inconsistent. The game against Lamar is the ultimate head scratcher. He did not play well. And you mentioned this, Jeff, their offensive line. I don't know if it's starting to gel now through 4 games in, but again, he does not move well. And that's something the Bison, I think Dutenheffer sacked him each of the last 2 times that they've played, the playoff game and the game last year down in Vermilion. That's something, if that Bison D-line can get going, it could be an awfully long day for USC.
If I'm Toby and Nene, I'm not going to sleep on Friday night because he's going to have a chance.
Well, all you have to do is go back and play the final minute of that game last year in Vermilion. To anybody that's back on the roster and look at how that played out, the final 3 minutes of that game in Vermilion last year and how that ended.
Yeah, in all my years of covering Bison football, that is the number one meltdown. It doesn't happen very often.
No.
And I can't remember if there's ever really another meltdown.
Oh, to that extent? No. Comes to my mind in the 20 years I've been covering them. That one's, considering they were up 11 points with 4 minutes to go. They just had a 99-yard drive that took, 13 minutes?
I mean,
no.
The loss to Indiana State in 2011?
Yeah, 12. That was not a meltdown, though. They just didn't play well.
That was just a
total brain fart game that they had there. Yeah. South Dakota, they had that game won. If you look at analytics, it was 99% NDSU. And then dropped to 0 at the final 4
And I'll
minutes.
say this about Tim Polsick, and I have mentioned this before, but people go, what do you think of Coach Polsick? And I'll go, I'll tell you after a loss, because anybody can speak after a win. Everything's all fine and dandy. But I'll tell you after a loss, and especially after a tough loss.
Like that one was.
Like that one.
Yep.
So after they melted down and just, did down the leg, I'm thinking to myself, okay, here we go.
Yeah.
Let's see what Coach Polsick is made of. And he came out.
He was really good.
And he addressed it.
Yep.
He admitted it. He addressed the faults, and he was really poised.
Yep.
Really poised.
Said this isn't going to define us. It's not going to affect us. Yep. And he was right.
And I think the coach passed the test with flying colors.
So I have another email saved from you. Eric Muter, Mike's here. Dom and Jeff, you want to address the rumor out there, the rumor from fans, that Polisic could leave to be the next Wisconsin coach.
No, I've heard that.
Now, let's get this out there.
Him?
Luke Fickell is still the coach at Wisconsin, even though they were booing them off the field when they lost to Maryland last weekend. Fickell has got a $25 million buyout. $25 million.
Doesn't matter anymore.
So here's the thing. Eric, you can chime in when you're ready. From what I read, and maybe Eric knows more about this, if they were to take the buyout, it would kill Wisconsin's NIL because they were going to rob Peter to pay Paul, essentially, if they are.
And would you hire an FCS coach? Does that pass the press conference?
Well, a Wisconsin guy that he is, and let's say they win another 10 football games.
But does Bob Smith, who owns Menards or whatever, does he care?
I think.
Does he know that Tim Polisick's a Wisconsin guy?
Maybe not, but they certainly know North Dakota State. Know that they're racking up wins.
All right, what do you got, Eric?
Well, their AD came out after the game, after all the chants, saying he's sticking by him. But if Wisconsin loses, if they have the season like they're gonna have, because they're about to be 2-9 probably at the end of the year, because their schedule is just brutal, they're gonna fire him. I don't care about the buyout, whatever. People will pay it. Boosters will stand up and pay it, and I will take Tim Polisic to come and play, to be the head coach of the Badgers any day of the week. Because of the energy he brings, the physicality, he's going to get the guys right.
He also will bring about 25 Bison with him, too.
Would he do that?
Oh, you got to win, man.
Would he do it, Jimmy Rogers?
I don't know about 25, but he'd bring a handful. There's a
lot of Wisconsin people would come out there.
Yeah, there's about 10 guys that come right to mind. I think he'd take. I appreciate the email on that because that's out there. But that's a lot of money.
I mean, we see what Tim Polisic has done and a quality head coach he is, but I just don't know.
Well,
that the only Badger fans in Madison know that.
Is there a connection? I mean, they went down that road. But older Badger fans will remember Don Morton getting hired, and that's not going to
help.
That didn't go well.
Nope, that won't help.
I mean, Paul Christ had a great record, and they fired him. I can't believe they didn't hire Jim Leonard. Jim Leonard, who was former Jet great, who was sitting there. I mean, they just sitting there and didn't do it. But I don't know. It's going to be because look at now. What's open? UCLA is open and Virginia Tech's open, and they were open after week 3. There are going to be other jobs out there, Jeffrey. It's going to be awfully interesting.
All right, what do you got, Chief?
Also a name to look out for, and just because he was spotted at the game, a volleyball game yesterday, Mike McCarthy was sitting with the Badgers AD at Wisconsin volleyball. I wouldn't mind taking him.
Nah, he's too old.
I don't care. He's got experience. He's a proven track
North
record.
Carolina hired 91-year-old Bill Belichick. So
it worked out all right. All right, let's get off Badger fan line here for a second. 2 other things. Another one comes in. Jeff, does the United States have any chance this weekend at the Ryder Cup at Bethpage? That is this weekend.
It's going to be a slobber knocker.
So we talked
again.
with Rylan Petrie about that Bison golfer because the NDSU played out at Bethpage last year. Dynamite course. I mean, but we have to win at home, right?
I would hope so.
I don't know. We can't be losing the Ryder Cup on home soil. Last thing for you, Dom and Jeff, simple question. It should be routine and required by the Missouri Valley Football Conference to play all teams in the league. Why not? Make it make sense.
No, I disagree.
Well, we're at 10 teams now.
That's 9
and they
games.
have 8. They play 8 league games. They could go now
9.
So the Big Sky is going to 9 next year. So the Valley, I asked about this when we were at Valley Media Day because the Big Sky announced it when we were there, and they said it's not been discussed. But that if you're having a hard time filling out your schedule, that is a possibility that, hey, you can go play a 9th league game.
I don't know about you, but I enjoy seeing these other teams. I really enjoyed going to the Citadel.
Yep.
I enjoyed going to Nashville. I just, seeing what the other programs and.
But if the phone ain't ringing, as you well know,
that's true.
Then hey, we need a game.
Yeah.
Or what's to stop Illinois State from scheduling NDSU even though a year they don't play? You know what I mean? Like, hey, we need a game. Let's do it. We've seen that happen before.
Big Sky did that.
Yes. I'm not a huge fan of that. I don't mind the 9 league games because then you are playing everybody when there's only 10 teams in the league. But when like the CAA has 73, I mean, we were talking about that in the first hour because Rhode Island and Monmouth are probably the 2 best teams. They don't play each other this year. So I don't know how good they are.
How about Villanova giving up 51 to Monmouth?
Yep. Monmouth's good. I'm going to tell you that. Monmouth's quarterback, Derek Robertson's really good. And Villanova, just again, another team that.
Well, the CA is.
Correctamundo on that. So, all right, we got to roll. Good
All right.
stuff. We'll have our Bison video blog coming up later today. You can check that out inforum.com as we preview the Bison USD Hall of Fame week, all that kind of good stuff. We'll have coverage of it all week long here on The Big Show. Thanks for coming by, bud. Good to see you. Jeff Kolpack joins us each and every Monday at 10 o'clock. We'll break. We come back. A look around high school football in North Dakota this past week. We'll recap some of the dynamite finishes we saw and performances when we come back. All right, welcome back, everybody. Overreaction Monday rolls on. Got a bunch of emails we'll get to before we wrap up the show. Also, we'll reveal our eliminator, who survived, who's done, as we put a bow on week 3 of the NFL season coming up tonight with a game that's on WDAY. Lions-Ravens coming up later tonight. Okay, I wanted to do this for a bit. Finally said, okay, we're going to commit to it each and every Monday to recap the best we saw from the high school football weekend. Because too often I get to it like, well, it's like Tuesday and Wednesday. We're already past it. We're already moving on to the next week. So Monday is the day to do it. So let's rip the Band-Aid off with our high school football recap. Salute to all of our great highlights we got from around the weekend. Starting Davies and Bismarck, game you saw on WDAY Extra. Davies rebounded a big-time way. Over 200 yards rushing in a 42-13 win over Bismarck. Eagles get to 3-1. Bismarck drops to 2-2 on the season. Colton Tesh, couple of touchdowns, 112 yards on the ground in the win. How about Century? I got to give Wingenbach a hard time. He didn't tell me they're wearing powder blue uniforms on Friday night. They dominated West Fargo, 29-0 the final. Patriots even up their mark at 2-2. Guess who's going to be number 1 come later today? That's going to be Shanley. The Deacons are 4-0. They came back from a 14-point deficit to score 54 on Minot in a 54-34 win. Dynamite game out west between Cheyenne and Mandan. The Mustangs scored late to take the lead. Mandan scores here on this touchdown run to make it 27-26. The Braves decide to go for two in the win, but Mamade Dore with a huge tackle, and Cheyenne gets the win on the road. They get to 3-1 on the season. Finally, Kindred. Same old for the Vikings. They keep on winning. Brooks Bacco had a huge night. 2 interceptions, 2 touchdowns, including this leaping grab. You want to know why University of Michigan has offered him a scholarship? That's why. 89 yards for the touchdown. The Vikings are 4-0. They beat Jamestown 49-6 was the final. Other scores from around Friday night. Minot North with a big win as they knock off Fargo North 28-7, the final there. The Sentinels remain unbeaten. We're on a collision course in 2A. Something earth-shattering is going to have to happen for Minot North and Kindred not to play in the Dakota Bowl. It just seems like we're heading towards that. You saw the highlights earlier in the show of West Fargo Horace's thrilling last-second win, no time left win over Bismarck Legacy. They get the Hawks to 3-1. Cheyenne, you just saw with their win over Mandan, 27-26. Good win for Jeremy Newton's team out west. Century, we talked about it with Wingenbach on the show on Friday. Just out there now. They're back to 500. Davies gets a dominant win over Bismarck, 42-13, the final there. Shanley does what they do. Shanley scored 140 points in 4 games. I'm not great at math. That's nearly 40 a game. About 35? Last time I checked, that's all right. They're going to be number 1 in the state come later today. Other scores from around the area on Friday night. We mentioned Kindred got a big win over Jamestown. The Vikings moved to 4-0. Shout out to Grand Forks Central. We had Jake Schauer on the show a couple weeks ago. The Knights are 4-0. They're waiting to say, wait a minute, Dom, we want to be in this conversation as well in 2A football. Red River got a nice win. They keep their mark to 2-2. They knocked off Williston. Devils Lake knocked off Fargo South. 39-23 there. St. Mary's gets the win over Wahpeton 45-24. Huskies drop to 0-4. Nice win out west for the Saints. So those were some of the games in North Dakota Big School football. We previewed it last week. Lemoore, Litchfield, Marion, and you can keep that music going. I got more going. Lemoore, Litchfield, Marion, and Hankinson played. And LLM with a big win. Congratulations to our guy, Andy Delabar. Second straight week, we got a coach. Friend of the program reached the 100-win mark. It was Jason Moneylaws last week. Andy Delabar gets it this weekend as LLM knocks off Hankinson. Congratulations to them. Saw the Moorhead Spuds get a big win. Barnesville goes and ekes out a victory over Hawley. Thompson got a win over Harvey Wells County, 14-12. St. Cloud Tech knocked off DL. Frazee, give a shout out to the Hornets. Frazee's 3-1. Been a long time since Frazee's been really good at football. They got a win over New York Mills on Friday night. Mentioned that Red River score. So we're nearing the halfway mark of the regular season, which is scary to say that out loud, but a couple of impressive results across high school football. Real quick on the western side of the state in North Dakota, just seeing how things are panning out. So Legacy lost for the first time. Sabres dropped to 3-1 on the year because we got all conference games now from here on out. Minot and Mandan are each 0-4. Legacy at 3-1. Century 2-2 with Bismarck at 2-2. In AA, Minot North is the class out west at 4-0. So if you're looking at it in 2A football, Minot North, Kindred, Central right now. After that, Devils Lake is 3-1. Give it up for the Firebirds. Nice start to their season. Watford City at 2-2. St. Mary's got its first win. Dickinson and Jamestown with Turtle Mountain at 0-5 so far on the year. EDC race, I think it's gonna be dynamite in 3A. Shanley, Horace, Davies. And going back to our earlier email on the show, they play everybody. So we could have a similar situation here in the EDC like we had in the Missouri Valley last year, where North Dakota State beat South Dakota State, South Dakota State beat South Dakota beat North Dakota State. So we could have that play out here with Horace, Davies, and Shanley fighting for that number 1 seed. Remember, number 1 seed, you get 2 games at home before the Dakota Bowl, which is a big, big deal. So some fun games this weekend. And we'll do this. Got to make sure this is a staple we're going to do each Monday, 10:35, to give our shout-out to our high school football coverage, because our team does a great job on First Down Friday. We televised a couple games there. You saw that. Some good stuff. So we'll do that each and every Monday now going forward in this time slot. All right, let's get a couple emails in here before we end up the show. We got to get to what to watch before we go. Dom, that first half from Wayzata looked like a team unaccustomed to traveling 3.5 hours for a game. That is a great point. I was there. I'm sure many of you watched the game on Extra. They did not have their sea legs underneath them, certainly in the first half. Moorhead was doing whatever they wanted. Now, the Spuds were doing it to themselves. Like the first drive, Moorhead goes down the field, and they have a couple penalties, an incomplete pass. They get stalled out on downs, or else they would have scored on that opening drive. They scored 3 touchdowns in the second quarter, so they were going. But then halftime, boy, Wayzata got its feet underneath them. They started running the ball. Jackson Brown is a dynamite player for them that's going to play Division I football somewhere. Heck, their quarterback, Thor Sukup, was up at UND. Wayzata's quarterback was at UND doing a visit Saturday before their game with Valpo. He's a good player as well. But we talked about it all offseason, about these teams coming from the Twin Cities and how they would adjust to coming all the way up to Moorhead. That was the first. We'll see it now. Maple Grove is a different animal. Wayzata they are better than 0-4. But this is a different animal that the Spuds got coming in on Friday. They're the defending state champs with, I believe, 7 Division I commits on the roster. So, yeah, they're okay. Back to Carson Wentz. Dom, happy to see Wentz do well, made good decisions. Vikings have one of the best rosters in the NFL. If they stay healthy, the quarterback, if it be Wentz or McCarthy, does not have to be great, just good for success. I think KOC even said this numerous times during training camp. Just we need him to do everything within the confines of our offense and let everything else take care of itself. And obviously, McCarthy couldn't do that in the first 2 games of the year. But Carson was able to do that and let their defense go and run wild. And, man, they were dynamite there. One more email before we go. And this is going back to the topic with Kolpack and I were talking about earlier in the hour on Bison Hall of Fame requirements, and with the advent of the portal, how many years technically you're going to need to become a Bison Hall of Famer? Not just here. That's for any athletic halls of fame going forward in college sports. Like what's it going to take to get in? The 1 year matters because that's when you are presented a fork in the road. Do you choose the Bison or yourself? No wrong answers there, but your choice matters. That's well said. And Marty Brown bet on himself, and it looks like it's paid off. And he got paid for making said decision. Cole Wisniewski, same thing. He's been a very good player for Texas Tech. It doesn't take away the bitterness or anger towards how that played out last year. I don't think there was any bitterness or anger towards Marty Brown. If there was, it was not nearly as loud as the Wisniewski deal. Same with like Marquise Siegel. I didn't hear initially, yes. We were doing the show that Monday after the regular season ended, and people were emailing me telling me something's wrong with Matt Entz. There's something wrong with the Bison football program. That why is it all the black players that were leaving? I remember I got those emails, and it had nothing to do with that. It just didn't. the era of the transfer portal, and it's come for everybody. Very few times I'm going to spike the football. I'll do it here. I said it then, and it hadn't happened in Brookings yet, and it hadn't happened in Vermilion yet, and it hadn't even happened in Grand Forks yet. Well, now here we are, almost 3 full years later. It's happened in all those places. So nothing stunk down here. Just it came quicker here because the players were that good. I mean, Siegel's starting in the National Football League. Anyway, thanks for all the emails today. Some good stuff. All right, we'll take our final break. We come back. We'll give the results of our poll question, the results of our Eliminator Challenge, and get you ready for a busy Sports Monday. Hot Mike will wrap on WDAY Extra right after this. All right, wrapping things up here on a Monday morning. Great stuff here on this Overreaction Monday. I just got an article sent to me. I've waited to the end of the show. Headline reads, as Tigers and Mets look to avoid stunning collapses, MLB's final week should be a doozy. Absolutely right. Here's the lead of the story. Which would be more embarrassing? The Detroit Tigers blowing a 15.5 game lead to a division opponent, or the New York Mets missing the postseason with a $340 million payroll? Well, I can tell you, as a fan of a team that blew a 7-game lead with 17 games to go, the Mets did that in 2007. I'm going to say the Tigers. If you're up 15.5, you win that thing. And now it's a 1-game lead in the AL Central. It was over. I said it in July. This division race is done. The Mets missing is just disappointing to me alone, at least in our viewing area. But if you have a 15.5 game lead, you have to win the division. That bar none on that. Going to be dynamite. Can't wait. Final week of the season, always in baseball, especially when you have division races and you've got records on the line. Should be some good stuff here. Poll question today. How would you describe Carson Wentz's Vikings debut? 61% said pleasantly surprised. A couple of comments here. As efficient as he needed to be with that defense, just don't make the mistakes, and that will keep him in the lineup. Also, I thought he would look better. Every one of his sacks he took was unnecessary. He even said that, though, as you saw after the game. All right, before we go, let's do our eliminator, see where everybody's at. I love our intro. Okay. We had a couple people pick the Packers yesterday. So let's see who's left. The Jackman is still in. Matt is still in. John is out. Brody, still in. Maddie, no. Kyle, no. Sam is in. And Benell, because of a last-minute change to the Seahawks, is still in. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 are left for the elusive prize of winning the Hot Mic Eliminator Challenge. All right, so we're down to 5. We started with 9. We're down to 5 through the first 3 weeks of the season. Let's do some What to Watch before we get out of here. That's good stuff. What to Watch is brought to us by Northwestern Mutual. We appreciate their sponsorship of our show each and every day. We got Lions and Ravens. Good one to end week 3 of the NFL season. That's back on Monday Night Football on WDAY tonight. You've got the Eli and Peyton Altcast going as well tonight. 7:15 on WDAY. Brewers and Padres, 2 playoff teams facing each other tonight because there's not much else going on. 8:30 on MLB TV. If you want some dynamite volleyball, Louisville plays tonight. Louisville's ranked number 3 in the country in volleyball. They're taking on Western Kentucky, 5:30 tonight on ESPN+. This is probably our last Slim Pickens night here because after this week, I believe we start having college football on Tuesdays, which everybody loves. So we got that coming next week. We got to roll. Our thanks to Sam Herder, Jeff Kolpack, to all of your emails for contributing to the show this morning. We appreciate that. If you missed any of the show, you can podcast it later today at Inforum.com. You can watch a full replay on WDAY+. Have a great Monday, everybody. Enjoy your Victory Monday if you got one. We'll see you back here tomorrow on Hot Mic on WDAY Extra, KSFL, KMBM, and Inforum.com.